Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Summers. I have another read aloud for you today. So today I'm going to read you the story called The Fantastic Jungles of Henri Rousseau, written by Michelle Markle and illustrated by Amanda Hall, right? Okay. So you can see the inside cover here is in the style of a very famous painting by Henri Rousseau. He was a pretty interesting artist. This is a book about his life. All right, Henri Rousseau wants to be an artist. Not a single person has ever told him he is talented. He's a toll collector. He's 40 years old. But he buys some canvas, paint, and brushes and starts painting anyway. Why? Because he loves nature. Because when he strolls through the parks of Paris, it's like the flowers open their hearts, the trees spread their arms, and the sun is a blushing ruby, all for him. Henri can't afford art lessons, so he has to be his own teacher. He goes to the Louvre and examines the satiny paintings of his favorite artists. To learn about anatomy, he studies photographs and illustrations from postcards, magazines, and catalogs. One day, Henri reads about a big art exhibition. He puts his canvases in a handcart and wheels them to the building where the show will be held. He's 41 years old, and this is the very first time he'll display his work. He can hardly wait to hear what the experts will say. Mean things. That's what most of them write, but Henri snips out the articles anyway and pastes them in a scrapbook. Henri walks around the city gathering ideas for his pictures. He goes to the World's Fair, where a man named Eiffel has built a latticed tower of metal rising several hundred feet into the air. What thrills Henri most are the fair's exhibits of villages from distant lands. They remind him of adventure stories he loved when he was a boy. Days later, Henri can still picture the plants and animals from faraway places. He holds his paintbrush to the canvas. A tiger crawls out. Lightning strikes and wind whips the jungle grass. Sometimes Henri is so startled by what he paints that he has to open the window to let some air in. Every year, Henri goes back to the art exhibition to show new paintings. He fusses over the canvases and retouches them until the last minute. And every year, the art experts make fun of him. They say it looks like he closed his eyes and painted with his feet. Henri keeps painting and learning. In the fall, he collects leaves from the cemetery to sketch. He spends hours drawing at the Jardin des Plantes, where, oh happiness, a gardener sneaks him into the hothouses. Towering plants spread their giant fans. Tropical plants fruit and flower into garlands, rockets, and roses of color. When Henri walks through the glass doorway, it's as though he enters into a dream. It's like he is someone else completely. One day, Henri paints a still desert night, bathed in moonglow. He sees a gypsy sleeping. A lion creeps up, but does no harm. Once again, he takes his work to the art show. This time, perhaps he'll please the experts. His pulse races. The expert says he paints like a child. If you want to have a good laugh, one of them writes, go see the paintings by Henri Rousseau. By now, Henri is used to the nasty critics. He knows his shapes are simpler and flatter than everyone else's, but he thinks that makes them lovely. He spends all the money he earns on art supplies and pays for his bread and coal with landscapes and portraits. In the afternoon, he takes off his frayed smock and gives music lessons. His home is a shabby little studio where one pot of stew must last the whole week. But every morning he wakes up and smiles at his pictures. Henri turns 61 years old. Because of his poverty, he'll never travel to a real jungle. It doesn't matter. He sees one before him clear as day. For weeks he fills in his jungle, tenderly shaping every fern, every frond, every blade and leaf. As always, when Henri finishes the painting, he takes it to the exhibition. Many experts mock him. One says only cavemen would be impressed by his art. But this time, several artists disagree. The artists are much younger than Rousseau and are already well known. They befriend him. And whenever Henri has money to spare and stages a concert in his little studio, all the artists come, along with the grocer, locksmith, and other folks from the neighborhood. And they listen to Henri's students and friends play their musical instruments. Henri gives the shiniest, reddest apples to the children. One night, a well-known artist named Picasso throws a banquet for Henri. The old man sits upon a makeshift throne. Poets recite poems for him. Guests sing songs and make speeches. Henri plays his little violin, and people dance to the music. His heart floats like a hot air balloon above the fields. Toward the end of his life, Henri makes a remarkable painting called The Dream, his biggest ever. As he does every year, he displays it at the exhibition and anxiously awaits the reviews. A famous poet writes, "I don't think anyone will laugh this year." Few people do. 100 years later, the flowers still blossom, the monkeys still frolic, and the snakes keep slithering through Henri's hot jungles. His paintings now hang in museums all over the world. And do you think experts call them foolish, clumsy, or monstrous? Mais non, they call them works of art by an old man, by a one-time toll collector, by one of the most gifted, self-taught artists in history, Henri Rousseau. The end. All right. I hope you enjoyed this book, boys and girls. Henri Rousseau is a pretty fun artist to learn about. I hope we get to see more of his paintings throughout the year. All right. Have Have a good rest of your day.